The recent email drop exonerates Noam Chomsky of wrongdoing. Dear subscribers and visitors, as I'm sure you've heard, various people like Vijay Prasad, Jeffrey St. Clair, Australian journalist Caitlin Johnston, etc., have written uncritical and unfounded denunciations of Noam Chomsky of late. I suppose they are jumping on the bandwagon to immunize themselves from any support of Chomsky so as to immunize themselves from anything to do with Epstein and his crimes, understandable in this difficult time. However, it seems to me that a critical reading of the emails exonerates Noam Chomsky from the worst of the charges against him, that he was aware of the then ongoing crimes, or that he was in any way involved in the sex trafficking network. In fact, the emails indicate the opposite, demonstrating beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not in the know or participating in any criminal activity. I have read through almost all the correspondence and would like to lay out why I have come to that conclusion. There are two email exchanges of note, which to any reasonable person show that Epstein lied about his innocence to Noam, and that Noam believed the lies. Now, one could reasonably believe that Noam was naive, should have known better, etc., but one can't reasonably conclude from them that Noam was in the know about his ongoing crimes. These emails exonerate Noam Chomsky from the worst charges. That is the key point. Did Chomsky believe what was alleged at the time, and chose to ignore it all, or was he disbelieving of it, or was unaware? I can forgive Chomsky for being ignorant or fooled, but if he believed it all to be true and didn't care, that is quite a different matter. Details. In one exchange, dated December 29, 2018, Epstein writes Chomsky asking advice about posting an op-ed in the Washington Post. In the email, Epstein sends the essay intended as an op-ed. Chomsky responds, quote, "It's a powerful and convincing statement, but my feeling is it would not be wise to submit it for publication. Take the stance of a reader who comes to the matter from afresh, perhaps having heard rumors but knowing nothing. The reaction, I expect, will be of the where there's smoke there's fire kind. Few are willing to think through the arguments in factual details or try to adjudicate conflicting claims. I have seen this happen over and over on other matters, many years of being accused of Holocaust denial, for example. Ugly and bitter as it is, I suspect the best course now is to not stir the pot by raising the issue publicly, opening the door to charges and accusations that can no doubt be answered in the court of logic and fairness, but that's not the public domain, where innuendo and suspicion and accusation reign. Anyway, for what it's worth, that's the way it looks to me, in part on the basis of experience. The great work you've done speaks for itself. My feeling is you should keep at it, and simply develop a thick skin to fend off whatever ugliness breaks through now and then, diminishing over time." Unquote. Now, I find it jarring that he'd refer to anything Epstein is doing as great work. Probably Noam meant money for charities, funding for research at universities, etc. However, Noam's statement here quite obviously assumes his innocence in regards to the sex trafficking ring. Remember that Epstein wasn't just a pervert, he was a money man, involved in all sorts of matters. So we can conclude that he's innocent of being in the know about the then ongoing criminal matters. There is also a second email exchange very like the first in February 2019, essentially the same, so I will not post it here to avoid repetition. The exchange is also the last contact he seems to have had with Epstein, apart from an email sent in March, which seems to have gone unanswered, in which Valeria asks Epstein how he's doing. Now, there are a number of other tidbits from emails that are doing the rounds. The point about Chomsky writing that he was, quote, fantasizing, unquote, visiting the island is not proof of any ill intent. Beaches, sun, etc. are fantasies, not just sex stuff. The same can be said for the rest of the emails in question. They can be dismissed. In a February 2019 email to Larry Summers, in which Epstein asked for advice in the media, the same that was sent to Noam in February, Epstein tells Summers that the idea he had trafficked girls for sex was, quote, so nuts, unquote. I'd assume that if Epstein told Summers that he also told Noam the same, i.e., so nuts. Two important points to consider, based on reading through almost all the recent emails, the original dump of emails, etc. Point 1. This is very painful to bring up, but I believe it to be important. Chomsky was very much estranged from his children during much of the period in question, late 2016 to 2019. There was a years-long family dispute over money, in part, so it seems, worries on the part of some that his second wife was manipulating him. Being estranged from family would leave him more vulnerable to Epstein being able to con him. I should say it was highly improper and outrageous for all this family dirty laundry to have been included in the email release, and I hope it is all redacted. If you've read through this dirty laundry, you'll have seen for yourself just how badly Noam felt over this ugly matter, which went on from late 2016 to at least 2019. He was devastated. Now, I want to make it clear, perfectly clear, that I'm not passing judgment on the family, but it is obvious that some massive misunderstanding took place and it led to a very bad situation. It is also quite possible that Epstein was in part behind this manipulation of the family through his various lawyers, accountants, etc. Point 2. Consider that Noam Chomsky had gone through a series of losses just prior to Epstein entering his life. His wife Carol died horribly in 2008. He had already lost close friend Edward Said a few years earlier. Howard Zinn, possibly his best friend, whom he knew going back to 1963, died in 2010. Zinn's wife passed away in 2009. His longtime confidant and secretary, Bev Stoll, also moved out of daily contact with him due to her retirement and his moving to Arizona. The same is true of Norman Finkelstein. Norman has said in an interview that he had very little contact with Noam after he moved to Arizona. That's a lot of blows for a guy in his 80s to take, and left huge gulfs in his life, making it all the more easy for a con man to move in successfully. My opinion is that with Noam being isolated from many trusted friends and most family, and in his great age, mid-80s through early 90s, that Epstein manipulated him, taking advantage of him, maintaining the lie about his lack of wrongdoing. It's not unusual for elderly people to be conned. It has happened to many elderly people I know, including in my own family. I don't believe anything malicious in regards to Chomsky's actions, but believe he could be fooled or conned, and that is not unlikely considering his condition and situation. Consider, too, have you ever heard Chomsky say anything inappropriate or sleazy to a woman? I haven't, and I've heard him speak probably more than anyone who hasn't met him. Summation. I believe that Noam, a bookish, shy, all too trusting man in his mid-80s to 90, was fooled by Epstein and didn't know the truth of it all until it was too late. No doubt he was angry, disbelieving it being conned, hence his angry-sounding answers in the times he was asked about this matter. Based on the evidence at hand, one can believe one of two things. One, that Chomsky knew about the ongoing crimes and didn't care, which would not fit what we know about him from his past, nor does it fit the email evidence. Or two, Chomsky was conned by Epstein, as the email evidence clearly shows, as many others apparently were, and Noam did not know till it was too late. This would be consistent with what we've known about Noam Chomsky from his past actions and comments about his character from those who have known him well, Norman Finkelstein, Bev Stoll, Howard Zinn, and myriad others who have had their lives improved through his many actions and dedication to all manner of good causes for over 60 years, including being jailed multiple times for his anti-war and civil rights work, etc. I write this and say it aloud now because Noam Chomsky cannot defend himself because he suffered a paralyzing stroke in 2023. Yours as ever truly, the Noam Chomsky Audio and Video Conservatory.